Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to episode 18 in season 2 of the P.W.P sessions. I'm your host, Noelle Figueroa. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight for another episode. Tonight, I'm honored to have another awesome poet by the name of Sammy B to grace my podcast this evening. I'm sure you're in for a treat. It's going to be an awesome conversation. But before we dive into the conversation, here's a brief introduction. So as I mentioned, this is episode 18. And for those of you that are not familiar with this podcast, the P.W.P sessions or the Poets for Purpose sessions is a podcast that I created where I interview new or established authors of poetry, as well as rappers or MCs. I feature a performance of their work and a Q&A session after their performance. Now, I am Noelle Figueroa, also known as the Poet and the Anointed Pen. I am a poet, author, blogger, workshop facilitator, and event host, and I am the creator of the P.W.P sessions. Now, tonight's guest is Sammy B, and this is her bio. Samantha Benvisuto, also known as Sammy B or Sam Benvi, is a multidisciplinary artist who explores mental health, racism, sexuality, and disability through poetry, music, visual, and graphic art. Having lupus, nephritis, and mental illness, she has worked through her struggles by using art in whatever medium works for her at the time. The restrictions of her health and disabilities, as well as the influence of her immigrant mother, informs her work and gives voice to her struggles. Samantha has spoken at the Jersey City Theater Center Disability in the Arts panel, performed The Isms of Race with Guazabra Insights, modeled for clients like the Red Cross, and appeared on many podcasts such as The Word of Controversy and Afternoon.fm. She is proud part of the Prototype 237 Artist Network and family, and has a short story and poetry book out on Amazon. You can follow her at It's by MMAS, it's by MMAS.com, or Linktree/It's by MMAS. Now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce Sammy B. Hey, Sammy B, good evening. How you doing tonight?
Hi, how are you? I'm good.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for being my guest tonight. Glad to have you.
Me.
Awesome, awesome. So I'm going to start off with a basic question that I ask all of my guests. Who is Sammy B? How would you describe yourself or define yourself?
Who is Sammy B? I mean, I guess Sammy B as like an artist, as a public figure, is someone who doesn't care about like the social norms, you know what I mean? She says what she needs to say. And she's an artist. You know, I'm talking about myself in the third person, but she's an artist. She is an educator. She, you know, she does a lot. But yeah, so but me as a person, I feel like is a little bit different from Sammy B, if that makes sense. So I'm not 100% sure how to answer that question fully, but yeah, I don't know.
What would you say? Would you say there's a like, you know how some people have a stage persona and then they have their regular self? Do you feel you have two different personas, or do you feel you're just all the same?
I feel like I have different personas depending on where I'm at. So like if I'm in, you know, a mostly like Black community, for example, certain parts of me will come out. Whereas if I'm in a mostly white community, it changes. So it's kind of like the code switching,
Mhm.
where it depends on who I'm with. But at the same time, it's still all me, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to answer that. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, it it is something that like I'm trying to incorporate in my life where like I'm all of myself all the time instead of just parts of myself. So it's a very interesting question that you asked me right now.
Awesome, awesome. Now take me back to the beginning. Like when did you exactly get your start in poetry? Like what was it about poetry that, motivated you to get into it?
So I would say, so when I was in fourth grade, I was in the gifted and talented education program in California, and we had to take a class after school, and it was an additional class that we had to take, and it was a public speaking class. And my public speaking teacher made us memorize a poem and perform it. So that was my first time really performing poetry. And then after that, like my mom got me a writing tutor. So I, wrote poetry from my writing tutor. And then when I was in high school, I had a crush on this guy and he wrote poetry. So I wrote poetry.
Hmm.
And it's just kind of continued on from there. I would say the first time I started like seriously performing poetry on my own was when I lived in Jersey City, and I started going to what was it called? It was an open mic. It was the first Tuesday of the month, and it was run by the the local neighborhood. It was like a part of the neighborhood programming, and I started going to that. And then after that, like I was just kind of like blew up as an artist, honestly.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Now, what when you when no, no, so when you first began writing, like what were those first subjects that you wrote about?
The first subjects I wrote about, um, I want to say I wrote a very like general poem. I think the poem that I remember writing first. I know I've written other poems, but I don't really remember them because it was
Mhm.
like, like your name and then S, stupendous, A, amazing, like
Right.
that out. So I don't really count that. I think the first poem that I wrote was a poem about how any poem could be about anything. So it was a school assignment, and my school assignment was to write a poem and to explain what your poem means. So I
Mhm.
wrote my poem, but I looked at it and I was reading it and I was like, this could mean anything. Like it could translate into anything. So I guess I'm gonna write like I already wrote the poem, but when I read it, it literally could mean anything. So I decided to explain my poem as if it's about how any poem can be about anything. And I didn't do so well explaining it, just like I'm not explaining it well right now. So at first I got like a B plus, but then my teacher was like, nah, that poem was too good though. Like it was too fire. A plus, I got a
Oh,
100.
nice, nice. That's excellent. So
But yeah.
as you develop your writing style, like who or what would you give credit to helping you develop your writing style or your writing in general?
So I would say going to Voices in Power, which is an open mic in Philly, New York, and now Miami, London, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, Ever since I started going to Voices in Power, which is really recently, I feel like my writing skill has upped like a lot in a short amount of time. And it's because at that particular open mic, there's a lot of really good poets. And when you get to hear really, really good poets, which is not to say other open mics don't have good poets, it's just this one is more like performance and like slam poets, and there
Hmm.
are page poets too, but they're more.
They're more recognized for performance
Yeah,
poetry.
yeah, they are. So because of that, I feel like I've gotten a lot of influences, and I try to use different things in my writing that I wouldn't have used before. So Definitely Voices in Power has been a big inspiration to me. Um, Before that, I really was just writing like from my head, and like whatever I wrote down, that was it, and like done, you know what I mean? So I feel like now I'm exploring more of like the technical side of it.
Awesome, awesome. Now let's talk about your book on Amazon. First and foremost, congratulations. That's an awesome accomplishment.
Thanks. I published that 10 years ago. I'm due for another one really bad, but and I do have enough to make another book. I just need to sit down and do it.
Right, right. Well, this book that you have out already, like what's the title of it, and what type of poetry do you have in it?
So it was all poetry I wrote in high school. It's called Personal. And it was just like, you know, me exploring my feelings and expressing things that were going on in my home that like I couldn't really talk about with anybody else or anything. So it like it's called, it's very personal.
Mhm.
It's not, it's not my best work, obviously, because it is so long ago that I wrote that, but it is something that I will read over occasionally just to like see. And even though the poetry is really old, I'll still perform a lot of the pieces in the book just because I like it. So
Right, right. Now, what was that journey like for you to put this book together? Like, what was the motivation for you to be like, okay, I want to do this. I want to put this together. Like, what was that process for you like?
so it was like ever since I was little, I always wanted to be a published author. And I think when I was like 18, I was reading about like self-published authors, and I was trying to like see how I could self-publish myself. And at the time, Amazon Author had like just come out.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, I can publish it on Amazon. So I took all my poetry that I had, I organized it into a format that like I liked. Um, and then I formatted it on a computer program and so that it could be like a PDF on Amazon, and
Mhm.
then I submitted it. So yeah, that's that. So I have that poetry book out, and then I also have a short story out as well. Um and then I just stopped, you know. I stopped doing that because I life happened, but it is on my list of things to do.
Right, right. Now, was this first book self-published, or did you have a publisher help you with it?
No, I published it myself. So I usually do things by myself. I usually don't have any help. Um and I mean, I know there's value in having a publisher, but I want my book to be published. I don't want it to like make me a lot of money necessarily. Like if it happens to make money, that's cool. But it's more so that like I just wanted to do it to say that I did it and be like, oh, I have a book out on Amazon. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
That's usually my motivations for most things. Is I just want to do it just to say that I did it.
Right, right. So that's more of a so it's more of a preference for you in that sense, as opposed to having a publisher do it. So you got that sense of accomplishment.
Right. And I mean, I think if I did have a publisher, it would be a different sense of accomplishment, if you know what I'm saying.
Right,
Um, but at that time, that was my motivation. I think now I would be more interested in pursuing an actual publisher just because I don't have time to like sit down and like make the book and edit it and do all that stuff. I'd rather just give it to somebody else right now. So
right.
different stages.
Right, definitely, definitely. Yeah, I can relate in that regard because my book is also self-published. So, there's a different it's a different type of satisfaction when you know that you had your hands in it, you know,
Yeah.
for most of it, if not all of it. And, knowing that you made the decision and how you wanted it to be from start to finish, it's a totally different feeling that I can relate to for sure.
Right.
Now, what was that feeling like for you when the book was done and you got that delivery and, you saw all those copies with your name on it? What was that feeling like for you to get that book in your hand?
I mean, it wasn't anything for me, really. It was this is my other problem. Whenever I set out to do something, I'm like, I'm gonna do it just to say I did it. I do all this work and then I do it, and then it's just like, whew, okay, that's over. What's the next thing? So um I don't know if that's like a personal flaw that like I can't really celebrate what I do just because I feel like there's always so much more to do,
Mhm.
or maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. Maybe that's why I like get so much done. But yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't really feel much. I never feel much. I just feel like, all right, it's done. Good job. Let's
All
go.
right. Excellent, excellent. Now let's talk inspirations. What poets move you? Like what poets inspire you?
Um, I well, I there's a lot of poets I like, and I like them more because they're my friends than because I like their poetry.
Mhm.
And then there's other poets that I really like, but I have no idea what their names are. So you know what I mean? It's a little hard
Right.
for me that question. I will say the one poet that I do like, whose name I know is I don't know how to pronounce her name, and I'm so sorry if I butchered this, but it's Nahira Wahid, or oh shoot.
The name does sound familiar, but I'm not 100% certain.
She has a poem that is like for the women who are hard to love.
Mhm.
I really like her poetry. I know she's like a woman of color and stuff like that. um I also like uh poetically L, Sincerely L, there we go,
Mhm.
Sincerely L's poetry.
Mhm.
um but she's also my friend, so like I'm biased, but I do know I would like her poetry even if she wasn't my friend, because her pen is like really fire.
Mhm.
And I like Lady Siren. She is an amazing poet. And I like Benedicto Figueroa. He used to be my roommate, but he's also a very talented poet. Although it's very interesting because um he's a different kind of poet than like the Voices and Power poets, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I'm familiar. I'm familiar with his work for sure. He's got some awesome poetry up his sleeve himself. I
Mm,
enjoy his work as well. But I see what you mean. He has a different vibe as opposed to
right.
the poets. But I totally gravitate to his work as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, there's something about his poetry that's like very authentic and like emotional.
Mhm.
And I feel like a lot of my poetry is also authentic and emotional, for lack of a better word.
Right.
Um, but yeah, there's a lot of poets, and I could go on all day naming every poet that like I like and I know, but it's a kind of a problem because when you're so involved in the community, it's just like I could list all of my friends right now, you know.
Right. Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. Now let's talk about subject matter. How do you approach your subject matter? Are there certain subjects that you gravitate to more than others, or or are you the type of poet that just writes whatever you feel at the moment?
I think I'm a write what you feel poet because whenever I do write, I tend to write it within like 1 or 2 hours. I don't spend a lot of time on it. Um, and so my topics tend to be things like love, or like, well, unrequited love mostly.
Mhm.
But some love poems. I have some love poems too. I tend to write about, my disabilities or like my mental illnesses. Um, I'll write about like experiences I've had growing up, like as a daughter of an immigrant, or uh being in the psych ward. I have a ton of, prose and poetry about the psych ward.
Right,
um a lot of my poems that I've written were actually written in the psych ward, because you don't have much to do, so
right,
I would just write poetry.
right, right.
But
Let's dive into that for a minute, because mental health and disabilities are very, very important subjects, and,
yeah,
and especially mental health. That's been put in more in the forefront lately. Now,
yeah.
in terms of your poetry, um, would you say poetry has been somewhat? Would you say your poetry has been therapeutic to you in terms of dealing with those issues?
Um, well, yes and no. So it's therapeutic in the sense that it's a release, and like I do have to perform a poem before I can like really let go of those feelings that are attached to it. Like I do have to perform it. I don't know why, it's my personal thing.
Mhm.
Um, but then it gets complicated because there's certain things I write because I have to write it, and
Mhm.
I perform it, and then I don't really want to perform it again because it was traumatic for me
Right,
to, you know, process it and write it and perform it and, do all that. So a lot of the times I will perform a poem until I can get through it without crying.
mhm.
And then I retire the poem, at least until I feel ready to do it again.
Right.
So like I have a poem that I wrote about like my friend passing away, or I have a poem about um a disagreement I had with the young lady who also had borderline personality disorder. So it was like my BPD poem.
Mhm.
Um I have poems about like times I've had sex with people, different things like that. Sometimes I don't want to perform it. I don't.
Right. No, I can understand that, because there's certain subject matters, based off of your experiences, can be very sensitive, and it's to your own discretion whether or not you choose to share that. And it's totally understandable, because that's well within your right.
Right. Thank
So,
you.
You know, but but in terms of, how can I ask this? It's like, in terms of you, like, feeling seen and feeling understood, do you feel that when you write these poems, or if you choose to share these poems, do you feel a sense of, not only a sense of release, but like a sense of like being seen and being heard when you're talking about these issues?
Sometimes I usually do because there's usually always someone in the audience who hears what I say and they feel it too. So in that case, I will feel seen and understood. Um, there's other times where I might not feel understood, but I feel the need to express what I'm saying, regardless if the person or the people or, whoever's listening is going to understand it. Um, so I would say that depends. I mean, most of the time I do. I do feel understood. Sometimes I don't, but it also depends on me too. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Because sometimes you just can't reach me, and I'm just performing to perform because I have a feature or like I have to do it. um which is why I kind of just like going to open mics whenever I feel like it, and not having to worry about, do I have to do a feature, do I have to prepare.
right,
um Makes it a little easier for me.
right, right. Totally understandable. But let's talk about the importance of that for a second. Now, Now, I'm sure you've heard the word representation thrown around in various circles for various different reasons. Now, in
Yeah.
terms of yourself and in terms of your writing, how important is it to you that you make sure that you're representing yourself in your totality, in terms of everything that relates to your life experiences, whether you're talking about, race, religion, if it applies to you, what it is to be a woman, all of the experiences and things that make you who you are, like when you're writing your poetry or whether you're performing your poetry, how important is it to you to make sure that you're representing yourself in your totality?
I would say that's actually pretty important to me. I rarely write from like someone else's perspective. It's usually always my perspective. I do have a poem that is from someone else's perspective, but it's still ultimately my perspective because
Mhm.
I'm writing the way I think they would feel, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
And I feel like that's the only way I can really write. Now there may be certain lines that are written from, there's certain lines that I write to talk to other people. Um, and I might misrepresent the line in order to communicate to that specific person. So, like, if one person hears the line, they hear one thing, but if the one specific person I'm writing to hears the line, it's going to mean something totally different to them. And so I think that is part of my style. I have a one line that goes, distract them with the truth so the surface truth can stay the hassle. Um, I present it, but there's always an additional layer that usually only a couple people are gonna know about.
right. Now, in terms of your work overall, like what has the response been to your poetry? Like what kinds of comments or reactions have you gotten?
I've heard that my poetry is raw. I've heard that it's very personal. I've heard authentic thrown around a couple times. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't actually know how my poetry sounds to other people, but except for what they've told me.
Mhm.
I think in general it comes off as genuine. I don't know why it wouldn't because it is, but yeah.
Right, right. So the responses usually vary from time to time, you would say?
Um, mm, I don't know. I think people in general can find something about my poetry that they like. I usually don't hear anything negative about my poetry. I mean, it's possible people are saying negative things about my poetry, but they're not telling me. So,
Right.
um, but yeah, I don't know. I think people generally like my poetry because it comes from just me. So if you like me, you're gonna like my poetry. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, I can attest to that because for those that don't know, I saw Sammy B perform at Evolu Culture
Oh yeah.
open mic maybe a couple of months ago. And I would say I'm feeling your poetry. I thought it was very, I thought your poetry to be very transparent and very creative and very unique. You have a very unique approach to your poetry that grabs the audience attention. At least that's what I think from what
Thank you.
what I observe.
Yeah, I have heard that too, that like I have a good stage presence and like, people I can't hear the audience because I'm a little bit deaf, but I've heard from other people that when I perform, they will hear people go like shh, like people want to hear me, so they'll like shush
Right.
other people, which I think is nice.
Oh, definitely. And with that, that provides the perfect segue to the next segment of this episode, because ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Sammy B to take the mic. Now,
Oh,
Sammy, at this time, I'm going to give you space to do up to 5 poems of your choice to give the audience an idea of who you are and what your writing style is like. So at this time, the floor is yours.
all right. Well, thank you. I'm going to perform. This is an old poem. It's old, but I like it. So I'm going to do this one. Pain pours down like rain that is toxic and poisoned. Rain that burns and yearns to be healed, peeling off the skin I'm in and leaving the bareness of blood and nerves. If I have hit a curve before, if I've swerved before, let me just say this was avoidable had I been so willing to love and emulate my Lord above. You see, this was culture the whole time, but our cultures didn't rhyme. Everything is black and white, and the colorblind are missing out. So it's not a race thing, it's a state of mind. But people tend to be one track minded. So, what would you do if they started to play 2 or 3 tracks at the same time on the radio? What would you hear? Would it tear you apart? Could you bear it? Do you swear it? Oh, could you hold the notes at the roots and nurse them to life? Rewrite the genius in your mind's eye until it became something beautiful. Creation has saved us before, and creation can save even more, but than destruction. But what is destruction but the construction of the road to creation? Didn't God flood the world and give us a rainbow at the end? But then again, God's rain was clean. Can I ask you what you believe? I mean, I believe I've been trained by everything but myself. I don't know who is safe to internalize because everybody fed me lies. Nobody told me the world was so big and so small, and I was just part of it all, expanding and reacting and contracting until I became a black hole for myself. But how was the sun to everyone else? People often say I think the world revolves around me, but the truth is I am living for the world. I mean, what other perspective could the sun even take? What is a star without its universe but a speck in the sky living alone? And how does the sun atone for skin cancer and sunburns, heat stroke, and dried up crops? I gave you all of my light and you received death instead. And yet the moon could not exist without my harsh rays to contrast its gentleness, not the way you know her. And a rainbow could not appear after the rain without the sun's rays to glow her. And to all of my babies of every color of the rainbow, yeah, they love to play all day. So while my children are preoccupied, let those old ideas die. Aren't you tired of pain? Doesn't the rain get dirtier over time? So when you're greeted with sins upon sins, just don't let them in, but forgive. Be forgiving. You don't have to forget, but you don't keep God for yourself. God is forgiving. And if God is for good, give good to the children of every color and let them be what they may. Thank you. Um, this next poem is called Yin Yang. I pray that one day you will learn the joy of being a giving tree, a flower always blooming again after it has been plucked because it planted its own seeds. I hope you learn the joy of being a worker bee, making honey for the queen happily, happily, happily. But if you must be the leader, then I pray you know what it's like to bring kisses to a knife fight, an artillery of hugs into a gunfight, make love when they try to fist fight because you said your words right. I hope you always say your words right. I hope you never regret what you say. And I hope you apologize right away when you do. I realize that real eyes can read lies, but do you realize that real eyes can mistake real for lies when you're looking at it from a different point of view? Shit gets skewed. Depending on the perspective, the view may change, but the scene is the same. If one sees from up high and the other from down below, who's viewing from the better angle? I hope you know in your heart that I love you, even if you don't. I hope you know I believe in you, even when you won't. You think you're an angel draped in devil's clothing, while I'm an angel devil. Well, I'm a devil dressed like an angel. Either way, we are whole when we're together. This next poem is if I can find it. This next poem is about rainbow and angel babies. And just so you know what it is, a rainbow baby is a name coined for a healthy baby born after losing a baby due to miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, or neonatal death. And an angel baby is a baby that has been lost to stillbirth, miscarriage, or neonatal death. An angel baby is a baby who was never born, a hopeful bundle of death that had never received the privilege to breathe, a shadow of the life it never grew into, deciding too early that they had enough and met their maker safely in their mother's womb, still trying to resuscitate them. They sacrificed their life and breath for heaven, where they could receive their wings and become her personal angel. They received their halo to light up the signal to keep spinning her thoughts onto them. And as she cries, they watch her with gentle eyes and collect her tears of lament until they have gathered enough pain and melancholy to spin a wheel in, the spindles refining the soft sadness into a long thread of mourning that they will knit into a dark cloud hanging over their mother's head. They comfort her under blankets of sorrow until holding in all of her grief for the loss of a life she had loved but never knew meets the pain of being an understudy who never plays the role even though she was assigned the part. She is a mother. These emotions whip along the winds of despair, accompanied by a thick fog of confusion, and the weight of possibility, never personified, sticks in the air as all of her insecurities secure and latch on to the problems of everyday life that continue on and on until a collection of deep and insurmountable depression overflows and weeps, pouring heavily into the ground where it absorbs into the earth, pounding as the thunder drowns out all of the noise and everything is made clean. And when the sky begins to clear of all this negative charge in the air, it is only then the angel baby will ask the sun to shine its rays on her rain, refracting its light and hugging the ground to create a rainbow. The life your angel saved and gave to you, so your sorrows transform into a seed for your celebrations, and that your rainbow baby may grow in gratitude without sacrificing a single color. So if you are still stuck in your solitude and solemn, and your angel is still spinning all of your thoughts, transforming all of your guilt into a heavy rain cloud that is constantly weighing over your head, please just hang on. I promise you, your little shadow is an angel working to process all of this pain. They are working so hard. I mean, maybe your baby has ADHD and gets distracted. Maybe your baby has anxiety and lets the fear freeze them whenever they knit one, purl two. Maybe your baby's disabled. It takes them a little longer to understand how to knit this pattern into something that makes sense. Takes their hands a little longer, but no matter what, your angel baby is working to create magic for you, because through all of this rain at the end, they will create a work of art. a rainbow, your rainbow, with all of its blessings, all of its colors, all of its gold, all of its gratitude. It will come if only you believe it. So, do you believe it? Now, can you see it? Okay. And then this next poem, I performed it at Evolute Culture, but I'm gonna do it for you now. It's called Throwing My Banana Peel for Love. Love, you are so cute. Tell me, what are you up to? Because me, I want to spit game like Nintendo, and I just need to know, baby, do you want to join my Mario Party? Or maybe you'd prefer to play Mario Kart, me versus you, because I'll be out here on these streets, out on the racetrack with my banana peel in hand, ready to throw any sudden thing at you to catch you slipping, and you will zap me with your lightning to zip right past me, which is to say your light shocks me to my core. But hey, we don't need to play games. It was just a suggestion. If you're looking to be a little more chill, we can Netflix and chill. I can grab a bottle and a bucket of ice. We can keep it really cool. Yeah, I can make you feel real nice. You see, I went to massage school, so I can rub those kinks out your back while we watch TV. Nothing kinky yet, just me. Rubbing the knots out with your body pressed against my body. And when you're feeling nice and relaxed, we can heat it up and add some spice. Get a taste of me in your life. Flavor Asian, kimchi and rice, red pepper flakes peppering the roof of this poet's mouth with its heat. And I know you know what a poet's mouth can do. I mean, I know you need to come too, so let me come with you to recite my lines of poetry to your. Ooh, I'm so sorry, King. I know that sounds disrespectful. Please don't take it as disrespect. No, it's just that after I'm done trying to understand the intellectual in you, the things that make you tick and inspire those complexities in you, the emotions and fears that have conceptualized in you, perpetually feeding the motivational fire that puts that drive in you, I just want to disconnect from the dialect and find the sexual in you. I want to feel you. And not just in my body, but in my soul. Turn all of my empathy for your destiny into our chemistry as we settle helplessly into our ecstasy, preciously holding each other endlessly like it's our specialty. Baby, I am saying this selfishly. Just tell me what intensity you want. And if you would like to be serious, I can be serious. If you would like an experience, let me give you an experience. I know you're curious, so let me sate it. We can go out on an actual date and get to know each other. You can tell me your secrets, and I can tell you my secrets one by one, whispered back and forth under hushed tones by flickering candlelight in a dark room where my shadow can convince your shadow my body is worth following. I will not waste your time. See, I believe love is patient and kind, and love is foolishly the only thing on my mind when I look at you. It is the first thing I want to commit to, followed only by you. I'm not in love yet, but trust me, I can get there. So if you would like to get there with me, I promise no greater pleasure, happiness, or bliss can exist. So please, if you'd like to play a game with me, give me a call. And if you don't, I'll be around. So I'll just try again tomorrow. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right here, ready with the games, the Nintendo, the kimchi and rice, and my shadow. So yeah, call me. I'll leave you be for real now, but don't forget about me on these streets now, out on the racetrack, banana peel in hand, ready to go, ready to throw, ready to show you that I'm ready to know you. Inside and out, ugly and beautiful, all of your sins forgiven, and a heavenly pleasure that could only ever measure into a treasure that ever becomes love. Love is the first thing I'm willing to commit to. I only hope it's followed by you. Thank you. And yeah, I think I have time for one more, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I'm gonna do my new poem that I wrote. This is called Me Too. My friend told me his biggest secret. He enjoyed killing people when he did. Sniping their heads off one by one, ridding the world of these people he once labeled vermin. It was a proud military achievement. It would later turn into his deepest shame. I sat there for a minute and thought about how he must view the world, how horrible of a place it must be in his mind to view himself as a monster, to view himself and to see a killer. But I'd only ever seen him be loving. I'd only ever seen him trying to be kind. Maybe it was his way of making up for all of his sin and his stupidity, but how lucky was I that he hated the world because he was convinced it hated him back, but still somehow he loved me. He loved me enough to tell me his shame, trusted me enough to hold the space that held all of his pain. So I told him, I don't think you need to feel ashamed as long as you don't do it again. Because if you think about it, a long time ago, you would have been seen as a warrior who protected his tribe from the dangers of the unknown. I mean, the unknown is very dark, it's very frightening. Even if it turns out it's just a person instead of the monster you thought they were. I mean, of course, you would feel good when you eliminated the threat to your tribe. You were just doing your job. You didn't know what you know now. You wouldn't have done it if you knew what you knew now. So I think you can still get into heaven knowing what you know now. And I don't actually know if it's true. Can people who have killed people still go to heaven? I don't actually know the rules, but have you ever went through something so bad you didn't even have the courage to admit it out loud? It would stick in the back of your throat and choke you until you couldn't breathe. You started to thrash and attack everyone around you because you weren't getting the breath of life that you needed. It was inside of your throat, blocking all of your air until you became full of hot air because your body would wither away in response. Your personality would go on autopilot. The survivor in you would come out, and that survivor did not come out to play. She would eliminate every single threat around you. Because I have. Yeah. Me too. So, how can I turn my nose at you for killing people you thought were bad and enjoying it? I mean, please. I've heard of way worse. And to be honest, I've done way worse. The difference between him and I, the reason why I still think he can make it into heaven is that he admitted out loud his shame to me, and me. I don't even have the bravery to begin putting any words to it. Thank you. That
Wow, 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 wow. Ladies and gentlemen, those were poetry selections from Sammy B. Wow, wow. I mean, your presentation, your subject matter, your ability to tell stories, is totally on point, totally on point.
Thank
Thoroughly
you.
enjoyed your poetry, and I'm sure our audience did. Thank you so much for sharing. Awesome poetry for sure.
Thank you.
Now, at this time, before we close, we're going to move right along into our Q&A session. And I'm going to start it off by asking this. When all is said and done, what would you hope to accomplish with your poetry?
Um, Honestly, I really just want to express myself, and I haven't thought too much about what I want to accomplish beyond just expressing myself. But I will say recently I've gotten a lot more people telling me that I inspire them. And I think the other day someone wrote a poem based off of like a uh, a story I did on Instagram, and another person messaged me, man. I had no idea who they were, and they were like, you inspired me. I'm gonna start getting out there and going to poetry shows." And I looked at her Instagram; she's going to more poetry shows. So
Mm.
I would say it's not that I am trying to inspire people, but in the process of sharing my poetry, which is just to release, um, I have found a lot of people who took my poetry and it kind of like changed their life. And so if I can continue doing that, then I feel like writing poetry is worth it.
Mm. Awesome, awesome. Now, if you could collaborate with any poet, living or deceased, who would it be and why?
Oh my gosh. That So I would like to collaborate with everybody. I'm honestly really about collaboration, and I really want to collaborate with other people. Um I would say at the top of my head, Benedicto Figueroa is someone I would love to collaborate with. Now, do I think he will collaborate with me? Probably not, because he's really busy and like he's got a lot of stuff going on with Smush Gallery and all that. But he's someone I would love to collaborate with. Another person, Nick Austin. He's another poet from Philly I just really would love to collaborate with on anything, honestly. And then, like just like my friends, just if anybody who's reading this, if you would like to collaborate with me, like please just DM me and like let's set it up. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. Definitely open to collaborations for sure, for sure. Your material is excellent for sure.
Thank you.
Now we got a few more minutes before we close. I see we have Layla in the audience. Layla, did you want to give a question or a comment to Sammy B before we close out? All right, that's cool if you just wanted to be, oh, I see. Oh, he's asking, what is something coming up that you are looking forward to?
Sorry, was I muted?
Oh, you good now? I hear you now.
Okay, great. I would say I'm looking forward to my performance at Delco Pride. I'm going to be performing music, which I normally get booked to perform poetry. So it's very exciting for me to get booked to perform music this time. I would actually say I originally was more of a musician than a poet. Poetry has been like a little side project for
Oh,
me.
wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome. What kind of music? Like what instrument you play?
I play violin and like some piano and some guitar, but
Wow.
the music I have out is just to beats. Like it's me writing my lyrics and singing them. Otherwise, I've done a lot of songs that were just improv with the after school activities at Prototype.
Mhm.
Um, they do this thing where they just jam all together, and I I I really like going there to just sing and get whatever's in my head out. And that's very therapeutic for me as well. Everything I do, it really is to like release my emotions and stuff, because I do have borderline personality disorder, and that makes my emotions like really big. So
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and Layla is saying that is so dope. Love that for you. I'm a huge fangirl, so I just wanted to plug in.
love you, Layla.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. Are there any other events or projects that you would like to make note of before we close?
So I have my project Poetry and Paintings New Jersey, that I try to do an open mic every quarter or so at different venues. I haven't booked the next one yet, but I'm planning on it. I also have the SMS Poetry Summit is going to be an event I'm going to be volunteering at. So if anyone wants to go to that, please let me know. That's going to be in Philadelphia. I also have volunteering at Take Off Your Cool, which is another poetry event on July 4th. So I just really like getting involved with community, essentially. So it's not that they're my projects, but they're projects I'm involved in.
Right, that's excellent. That's excellent. And where can you be found on social media?
ITSBYMMAS. It's by Miss, or it's Sammy B backwards, if you can't figure it out. I can, there's also like my link tree if you want to like look at all my performance videos and like my portfolio and different podcasts I've been on. I'm going to put this on my link tree as well. And it's the same thing, ITSBYMMAS. On any social media handle, that's going to be my name. So
Okay, excellent, excellent, awesome, awesome. So as we close out, there's just one more thing that I like to do, which I feel is very important. And it's just to say thank you. First and foremost, thank you, Sammy B. Excellent conversation and equally excellent poetry. Thank you so much for coming through and spending time with me to give insight to yourself as well as to your work. Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed your poetry, and I'm sure our audience did as well. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for the next episode, episode 19, which will be featuring Gabriella Stella. That's happening next Thursday, May 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you haven't already, you can connect with Poets for Purpose on Facebook through the Facebook group, on Twitter @PoetsW_Purpose, YouTube channel of the same name. I'm also on Clubhouse @The Anointed Pen. And for more information about Poets for Purpose and the P.W.P sessions, you can call me at 646-372-6230 or email me at poetsforpurpose@gmail.com. All of my flyers and logos were designed at the great team at Eclipse Graphics. You can find them on Instagram @EclipseGraphicsNY. And for those of you that wish to make a donation, you can do so through PayPal, Tap Media Man, $Anointed Pen, and through Zelle utilizing my phone number. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a wrap for episode 18. This episode will be uploaded to the Poets for Purpose YouTube channel within the next hour or so. So be on the lookout for that, so you can share that with your social media channels. Thank you to my guest, Sammy B. Thank you to my audience. Thank you all so much for your time and for your support. Have a good evening and God bless. Thank you.